If your car battery dies, it's helpful to know how to use a set of old-fashioned jumper cables. This emergency tool should be in every car for those, just in case, moments. While it might seem easy to connect a set of jumper cables, numerous things can always go wrong. One issue you don't want to deal with is the jumper cables melting or the jumper cables smoking. In this guide, we cover all of the possible reasons that the jumper cables started smoking and show you how to fix it. We also discuss how to pick the right size jumper cables, from understanding the ratings and the lengths. In the end, today only on Trinix Auto Fix. What causes melting or smoking jumper cables? In some cases, the jumper cables will melt because of a poor connection. Other times, the smoking and melting of the jumper cables is caused by a failure, whether they are too thin, broken, or you spent too much time trying to crank with them installed. Here are the 5 most frequent causes you might be dealing with. 1. Incorrectly connected. When there is a user error with the connection, it will not only cause the jumper cables to melt, but it can also lead to an inability to jump the vehicle. When you connect the cables, you must make sure that the clamps are put on in the right order and to the appropriate location. Each one of the clamps is meant for a particular terminal on the car battery. Red clamps go with the positive posts, while the black clamps are meant to connect with a negative post. If you reverse this order, electrical failure might occur, leading to melting and smoking. While it doesn't seem like a good thing to have the cables melt, this is actually a built-in safety feature. Instead of exploding the battery, the cables melt instead. It's much easier to replace a set of jumper cables than to fix a car after a battery has exploded. 2. Jumper cables too thin. The jumper cable is needed to transfer power from the good charging system to the one that has failed. Electricity is produced from this transfer, which is why you must be careful what type of jumper cables you purchase. Jumper cables can be bought in a variety of gauges, indicating how thin or thick they are. If you choose to save money by buying something too thin for the power that's being transferred, you can melt the cables. The cables will overheat until the plastic melts. The only way to prevent this is to ensure you only use cables that are rated for your particular vehicle or better. 3. Bad connection. We've already discussed how a poorly aligned connection between the two vehicles can cause issues, but we must also look at how the cables are connected to each car individually. For batteries to be charged, all of the connections must be perfect. If there is corrosion on the battery post, you can run into many of the same problems because the connection will be loose. Bad connections lead to a loss of electricity. So, along with heating up the wires and causing melting, you may also have trouble getting the battery jumped. 4. Damaged cables. Jumper cables are built to be durable. After all, they have a heavy-duty job to perform. Still, they will go bad and fail over years of use, especially if they haven't been stored correctly. Any spill can lead to damage or corrosion of the clamps. The plastic insulators can also fall apart from getting too brittle. Either way, any damage to the jumper cables can cause malfunctions, including melting or smoking. 5. Cranked too long. Remember how we talked about all of that electricity working through the jumper cables? If you try to crank the engine for too long, there's going to be an excessive amount of electricity that the cables may not be able to take. For this reason, it's possible to melt cables if you keep cranking the engine when you shouldn't. This problem is more likely if you are using a cheap pair of jumper cables, as heavy-duty options are better insulated and prepared for the power. How to fix melting or smoking jumper cables. The only way to fix a smoking or melting jumper cable is to first figure out what went wrong. Once you know where the error is, you can choose one of these repair methods to fix the problem. 1. Connect cables correctly. The only way to properly get a car jumped is to connect the cables to each car correctly. Here's the recommended way that most technicians use. Connect a red positive jumper cable to the dead battery's positive terminal. These can be marked with a plus sign. Connect the second red positive jumper cable to the good battery's positive terminal. These can be marked with a plus sign. Attach a black negative jumper cable to the dead battery's negative terminal. This can be marked with a minus sign. Attach the second black negative jumper cable to the good battery's negative terminal. This can be marked with a minus sign. If you don't do it in this order, not only can the cables melt, but an explosion could occur. That's why you should always follow the outlined procedure and never let the ends of the cables touch one another. 2. Check connection. If you are positive that the connections are aligned correctly, it's time to check each car's posts. Look at the terminals to ensure there's no corrosion. You want a nice, snug fit on both sides. If corrosion is present, you can gently wipe it off and try to reattach the cables. You should also verify that the terminals are tight when you are finished jumping the battery. 3. Use thicker jumper cables. To the untrained eye, all jumper cables appear to be the same. However, jumper cables are available in a variety of sizes, with cheap cables having a much thinner material. To prevent melting the cables, we recommend upgrading to a better set. It doesn't cost much more for the upgrade and you will save yourself a lot of headaches. Plus, you will be able to jump bigger cars with the well-insulated cables. 4. Let them cool down. If you are having trouble getting a car jumped, take a break. Don't keep cranking the engine trying to get it to turn over. Instead, you want to give it a shot for a minute and stop. If it doesn't work at first, let the cables sit in place and cool down before trying again. How to choose the correct size of jumper cables. There are 2 specific aspects of the jumper cables that are most important. To start, you must pay attention to the rating, which is considered a size. The rating shows you the wiring gauge beneath the insulation. The lower this number is, the thicker the cable is. If you want the best jumper cables, you need something that's heavy duty with a lower number. Ideally, the 1 and 2 gauge cables are going to provide the most consistent results, no matter what car you work with. On the other hand, a 9 or 10 gauge cable is only meant for compact cars. Aside from the rating, you must also think about length, although this won't cause the cables to melt. Still, if the jumper cables aren't long enough, you won't be able to reach both cars. In most cases, 10 feet might be long enough, but why take chances? It doesn't cost that much more to get a set of 25-foot cables and you have more guarantees when emergencies arise. Thanks for watching, catch you guys later, bye for now.